Hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Frank Sullivan. I'm the marketing director here at Digital Craftsmen, and I'd like to introduce a series of new videos that we're going to be doing over the coming weeks. We're going to be doing a technology deep dive into areas around security, cloud, hosting, and digital transformation. Today, we've got a special guest. I would like to thank Mikkel Drescher, our
Good morning.
Senior Solutions Architect, for coming in and taking time out of his busy day to talk to us today about encryption. So, Mikkel, we know that security is the topic du jour. Where's the starting point for a conversation there?
It all starts with, from our point anyway, with your relationship with your own customers. If you don't get that one right, they won't build the trust with you that's needed to actually enter business with them. And the first point of contact, the first impression they get is your own website on the web. And what's more discouraging a client when they go to your website, or in this example, digitalcraftsmen.com, and see a big fat red cross saying that you cannot trust the website. What now?
That's a lost sale. I'm not going to visit that website.
Okay, so the first step here is to actually ensure that the communication between the customer and your website is properly encrypted to ensure that the customer is reaffirmed or reassured to actually start building the trust that's necessary.
So we're talking about SSL.
Yes. Although SSL itself, which stands for Secure Sockets Layer, which is a technical term that describes the endpoint of the client, their browser, and the actual web server that serves the shiny web content. And they are called sockets. And secure, and sockets layer, means it is a certain layer in the communications between the client's browser and your website that's secured. The newer terms is TLS, which means Transport Layer Security, and that is directly describing what it is. The only thing it does, it secures, encrypts the transporting the communication between the client's browser and your website.
There you have it. New standard for security, TLS, Tender Loving Security.
Yes.
How would you describe a digital handshake in the analog world?
A handshake like that is nothing new. That has existed since thousands of years, since people actually did business with each other. Let's take a very old example that still exists around the world, even in very rural areas in Britain and in Ireland, I would say. And that is...
And Germany too.
Of course in Germany too. And that is of how to sell and buy livestock. And it all starts with the end, and that is, in classic terms, how traders seal a deal, and that is by handshake. And that handshake is how the technical term handshake on how to negotiate security between the client, browser, and the web server comes from. It comes from this old term, handshake.
I think one of the important aspects around privacy by design and security by design is anonymity. I don't want other people seeing my handshake.
That's not anonymity, that's confidentiality. Means, you can talk and communicate with an anonymous customer, but you would like to get to know them, and you as a seller of, say, at the livestock market, you want to sell me a goat, you'd want to know who I am, but you don't want all the other traders around to see how we negotiate. And that's done with a very ancient system, and we demonstrate that, and that's called haggling. And what they did, it's really, that's the way, it's an ancient language really, and that's done through hands.
So I've got a fine-looking sheep, and I'm looking to sell it, and you're looking to buy a fine-looking sheep. We're not going to say why.
And what we are doing with that is some certain moves with fingers, stroking and touching certain fingers and frequencies, things like that. I don't know the code, but this is how it's done. And at the end is the handshake. And a very simple means of securing that is by putting something over your hands. You haggle, and you look each other in the eyes.
It's too expensive. It's too cheap. Yeah?
No, it's good. It's very good.
No.
Okay, we agreed. We take away, and for everybody to see, we agreed. That's where the handshake between traders comes from. We seal a deal with a handshake, but the haggling, the detailing of the pricing, this is all in confidentiality. And that is what you want in the digital world with your customers. How you communicate with your customers, what they tell you and what you tell them, is no one else's business.
So let's fast forward 2,000 years into the modern day, or let's fast forward 50 years from public sector. How do you think that encryption is changing? Or how do you think that the web is changing?
It used to be a very monolithic, simple system. The internet used to be a very controlled, small network that was usually, it started to be used by military in the US, then went into the academia sector and then spread its way to public sectors, and in the end, at the early 90s, to public consumption. And this is where it started to become very complicated. It went in lockstep from IT architecture and hardware as monolithic systems, as mainframes with satellite terminals, to PCs, where capabilities of computers started to become diverse. Not everybody had the same PC or the same terminal connected to the same mainframe. It was all of a sudden an IBM PC or a Commodore PC or whatever. What you knew, so the capabilities of these computers, and with that the identity of those who used the computers started to obscure. And with that, people became anonymous. And that meant that you needed to start finding a way to establish identity of people. And with that, it used to be all very slow and cumbersome. But this has changed. And with that, also the ways of how you actually encrypt information between two endpoints, between a customer and your website, or even behind that, but that's a topic for later, how you actually encrypt that all has changed, and it's become much easier. And there's no reason anymore at all to say, I use an unencrypted website for everybody to see and listen in. It's a bit like a postcard you send. Everybody in the Royal Mail can read the postcard, and you rely on your postman's confidentiality to not read it.
Well, let me throw out a somewhat controversial topic here. What if we said any unencrypted traffic on the internet should be blocked or stopped?
That's already happening.
Is it?
It's not happening in that way. There are two key events that happened. And that started with the Firefox browser, where the ones who built it, the Mozilla Foundation, said, we do not allow in our browser to use SSL anymore. We force you to use TLS, which is the more modern version. And this has to do with the capabilities of cryptanalysts and code breakers to actually look at, hey, I have some piece of encrypted traffic that was state-of-the-art 15 years ago, but they can decrypt that at sufficient time, almost real time, because the algorithm used to encrypt had flaws.
So information created 10, 15 years ago may still be confidential for the business, but it can be decrypted easily if they're not using upgraded security standards.
Yes, exactly.
The final point I want to discuss in this video, and we've got plenty more videos to come, is looking at the IT landscape and how technology has changed, business has changed. We now look at new ways of securing devices on a network. We look at multiple companies involved in securing the IT estate. For example, us as a managed services provider, SaaS providers for software. Do you think that the concept of perimeter security is dead?
Yes.
Okay.
As the sole way of securing how your IT estate is secured, yes, it's dead. Security is no longer something like a plaster you put on something that's, oops, there's a little wound, there's a little security vulnerability. Security is strategy, is core business strategy, and it needs to be applied properly. Because when you don't do it properly, you can just as well forget about it.
Well, I think that's all we have time for in today's video. Next up, we're going to be talking about how do you secure an IT supply chain, not just your own organization or your own business, but looking at all of the different points along that supply chain. What reflects the modern way of doing business, and how to do it securely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank.